Whether you're designing a new cattle working facility or trying to manage an existing one, it's important to make sure the facility you have best meets the needs of the cattle. Let's head to Texas, where stockmanship expert Dr. Ron Gill shares some facility design tips with us.
When we talk about facility design, there's a lot of different images brought to people's mind. There's a lot of different designs out there. There's a lot of constraints in where facilities can be built, and regardless of what those constraints are, there's some basic principles of behavior that we need to keep in mind. Most old corrals are much like this one we're standing in today. This has been pieced together at least 4 or 5 different times, so the pieces don't always fit together exactly as they should, but you can once again try to design it where you have some flow and ability to move cattle from one area to the other pretty easily. This one happens to have an alleyway on one side of it. A lot of people do not have that. Some people really use an alleyway quite a bit. This one actually has a small tub system in it that's not particularly designed the way I think a tub should be. We've adapted it and adopted some other principles and design behind it that makes it actually work fairly well. So the main thing is to try to figure out how you can make things work regardless of what your setup is. And then if you have some real trouble spots, understand how cattle are thinking, behaving, read what they're doing, and make adjustments. And that's the thing that I really encourage people to do, is try to let their cattle tell them where they have a problem. In a lot of facilities and a lot of people's mind, they want to really stack an alleyway or whatever loads or their source of cattle coming into a sweep or a crowd area. You really want to keep this area where it's not overcrowded, where you can get cattle to move very easily. I try to put maybe enough cattle in here for about 3 different loads going into that squeeze chute. That way I can keep motion going in the cattle and not have to have a lot of them sitting in the back of the alleyway, getting additional stress on them that I don't particularly want them to have. So we keep a limited number in here. We may warehouse some back in the alleyway here, and that'd be something as this needs more cattle. We step to them, get them to come back past us into this area. That just trains them for the next segment as well. So everything's designed where you step past cattle and draw them forward, refill your alleyway or your loading area, and don't put too many cattle there. It's better to leave them in a corral out back and go put more in as you need them. In this particular setup, and regardless whether it's this one or something else, I like the idea we bring cattle into this alleyway and into this section here where we're standing. And that they go to the far end, their natural inclination then is going to be to come back. And so what we do from that standpoint, we can open this gate as we bring cattle in, bring this one around, and then I'll push cattle away from me to that end, let them start coming around. And as they come around, then I'm working on the side and I can push on the cattle and send them into this, it's not really a bud box, but kind of a return box behind this sweep system. So the cattle would come into here. The idea behind this would come into here, would actually close the gate behind us, but as the cattle come in, they're going to come to this end, and you want this end open so they've got daylight to go to. The other sides can be solid if you want them to be. But the cattle will then want to circle around and come back out, and at that point in time, we've got the gate behind them that we closed, and whoever's brought them in here then can open this sweep gate, or should already have it open, to where the cattle can come around and into this sweep tub. So as the cattle go to the far end, I like to open the gate from this side. Some people like to work it from the other side. I personally like to work it from down here where I can push on an eye, get the cattle to come out of that corner. As they come around, I can step to their side, draw their eye on around this corner. The trick to making this work really smooth is once they start around here, don't just worry about the ones in the back and getting them all in here. As the front comes around, I'll step right to this pivot post to put pressure on them. Now, if the cattle are really wild or something, and you haven't got them where they handle really good, you may can do this from the outside as well. But in this scenario, I want to push on the cattle and get them started down that chute. This design is not what we'd like for it to be. This should come off and go straight for at least 2 body lengths. That allows the cattle to see an opening. As they come around this corner, that looks like a solid wall to them. Once they get started, it's fine, but getting them started can be a little difficult. So once again, if you're going to redesign it, go straight. Once the cattle go down the crowd alley, whoever's working on the outside, or if you're working by yourself, you then can go to the outside, come from the front to the back to get the cattle to move forward. Same thing we've been doing out in the pasture, same thing we've been doing in the corral. So we use the same signals in each segment of this deal, trying to work from the side, not from the behind, draw the cattle forward, put pressure on them and get them to flow themselves through a system.